Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony Davis. Here's Ron Filipkowski. Ron, can you hear me? Just checking.
Got you this week
Thank
after
you so
our
much.
little
Appreciate it.
audio difficulties last time. We're all good today.
Okay. We have lots to talk about. We have lots to pack into the show where we uncover the MAGA propaganda that is barely covered by the corporate media. We need to start, though, with some breaking news. And the first story is very tragic and comes out of Georgia. This is 4 people confirmed dead, multiple others injured in a shooting this morning at a high school. Authorities said the suspect was alive and in custody. Law enforcement officers responded to a report of a shooter at the high school in Winder, 50 miles northeast of Atlanta, at 10:23 this morning, according to the Barrow County Sheriff's Office. Thoughts and prayers is all we are probably going to hear from Republicans. No shift in policy on gun safety or gun control. What are your thoughts on this, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, we go through this, seems like every day or every other day. Not always schools. This was a school shooting. Apparently, from what I read, a 14-year-old boy, not sure if he's a student at the school or not. But, the 3 congressional districts, this is Mike Collins's district. Neighboring district is Marjorie Taylor Greene. The other one is Barry Loudermilk. All 3 are opposed to all gun laws. They're against every gun restriction. They don't agree with that. And so I actually went back, because Mike Collins is the congressman for this district, and I actually went back and read some of his old posts about gun laws, and he is a Second Amendment absolutist. He is one of those people who believes that all gun laws are unconstitutional. Waiting periods, red flag laws, keeping guns out of the hands of convicted felons, that all gun laws are unconstitutional and there shouldn't be any restrictions on guns. This is the congressman who represents this district. So it certainly will be interesting when he has to face some of the families of the survivors, of the people who are wounded and killed, and maybe hears from them about his positions on guns.
Really, this was exposed significantly when Donald Trump was shot at with one of these types of weapons of war. The irony was that, he is almost assassinated, somebody behind gets killed, and there was absolutely no mention of the fact that these AR-15 style rifles was used in that instance. I'm not sure in this school shooting whether it was the case, but invariably it is. And yet there is never any movement, because they like to blanket all firearms into their Second Amendment rights, despite the fact that the Constitution called for a musket that fired a single shot. I mean, it's difficult for me, because I'm obviously from the UK, where our police do not carry guns. So, that's how different the environment was that I grew up in. But for you as an American and as a Marine and as a teacher in your life, this must mean something quite different.
Yeah, they always make these arguments about mental illness and SSRIs and school security and this and that. But as you look around the world, we are the only country that has this problem. And why is it? Because there are more guns in America than people. Last time I saw the stats by ATF, it was like there are 420 million guns in circulation in the United States with 330 million people. So there's more guns than people. We're awash in guns, not just guns, but high-powered assault weapons.
Yeah, I think there's 70 million AR-15 style weapons.
Yeah, it's the most popular gun in America now, whereas 25 years ago, there was hardly any AR-15s in America. Now they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And because they've been glamorized, they're cool. These right-wing gun nuts go out and they shoot them on the range and they post their videos online, and now everybody wants them. And it's just there has to be some common sense here, some just rational thought. Nobody's out there trying to say we want to take away all guns. It's not possible. It couldn't happen. There's no way that the government could do that. What we want is sensible, reasonable gun laws. But the problem is Republicans don't want any gun laws at all. They want you just to be able to have whatever you want, wherever you want.
Yeah. I have a clip of Representative Mike Collins, who represents the district where the shooting happened. This is from a couple of years ago when he was asked if he favored any gun laws, including red flag laws. Let's take a look.
But are you open to any compromise gun control legislation that's being discussed in Washington, so-called red flag laws, expanded background checks?
I am absolutely opposed to red flag laws. I am 100% adamant that the Second Amendment is written right. There is no changing it. We do have problems. We don't have a gun control problem in this country. We don't have a gun problem in this problem. What we have is a cultural problem where we have removed God from every facet of our life, be it from the schools, from prayer, even television. That's where we've got to get back to where the sanctity of life means something.
Yeah, it's God's fault.
I mean, there are countries all over the world where belief in God and church attendance is way, way less than the United States, who do not have these problems. So that does not appear to be the answer. And even if it was, what's the solution? You're going to do like the guy in Oklahoma? You're going to just mandate Bible study and that's going to solve all of this? I mean, give me a break. These guys are just, they're morons, they're fools, and they're getting people killed. And it's time really for people to, just like we're doing on abortion, where people are rising up with referendum. You know, people need to do that. You mentioned the founding fathers. You know, at the time that the Constitution was ratified, 1781, at the time it was ratified, I think it was 91. Finally, it took many years. 81 was the end of the Revolution. To load an average flintlock rifle took between a minute and 2 minutes. It was a minute if you were pretty good. It took roughly a minute and a half to load one. And even then you couldn't hit anything more than 100 yards away. And so this is what the founding fathers thought they were protecting, the ability of people on the frontier to have flintlock rifles. I think if you took the founding fathers together and brought them back together today and showed them the kind of weapons that are in circulation in American society, they would go, oh no, we're not putting that in there. But I think they just didn't envision the kind of insanity that we have today.
Well, they also didn't envisage a wannabe dictator turning over pretty much all of the laws, including the Insurrection Act, and still being allowed to be on the ballot to try to get elected in November. I mean, that one is just beyond me. There's another breaking news story today, which is really interesting, actually, and I think Joe Biden's going to make an announcement about it a little bit later. This comes out of the Department of Justice, which has unsealed an indictment charging 2 Russian nationals with conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act and money laundering in a scheme to covertly influence U.S. audiences. And these 2 people are at large still, according to the DOJ's announcement today. But maybe you can tell us why it has interesting ramifications for some American people who are also involved.
Honestly, when I first saw this yesterday, I didn't pay that much attention to it, and because right wingers were out in front and they were saying, "Oh, here we go again," you know, more Russia, fake Russian collusion, this and that. And I thought, oh man, you know, I really don't want to get bogged down in some complicated thing right now, 2 months before the election, either, unless this is something like seriously legit. But then, you know, some of the details have now come out, some of the redacted indictment, and it looks pretty damn serious. It looks basically like what they were doing is putting seed money out there to go at right-wing podcasters in America with already established audiences, offering them money to push talking points, a lot of money. And some of the names that are being tossed around are some podcasters with big audiences, and I say audiences in quotes now because they clearly have all these subscribers and views, but the question now is how many of them are Russian bots made to make them look more influential than they really are. And these names are like Benny Johnson, Tim Pool. I mean, these are big names in the podcast business, and they're being offered lots and lots of money. And if you listen to their shows, I don't listen to Pool because I think Pool's just a clown, but I do listen to Benny Johnson. I mean, they're just constantly pushing like anti-Ukraine Russian propaganda on these podcasts. Charlie Kirk, many others.
It would be foolish for us to underestimate quite how Russia is so involved in manipulating these far-right Christian nationalist white supremacists who are all Trump peddlers. I mean, there is a whole underground movement of these people where, they are rewarded effectively. And so what we're seeing through this indictment is that, the lid will be lifted on this story. And hopefully before the election, because I've been trying to, make it clear that this election is going to be more terrifying than, 2020, simply because they learned their lessons last time, fake electors schemes, the whole kind of, Dropbox argument and shutting down polling places and trying to, minimize the people's opportunity to vote. Outside of that, those are, I think you call that like a hard product. The soft product version is all of the stuff that's happening online that people don't even realize how they are being influenced. And I'm sure that the Kremlin is working overtime on this.
Well, when you think about it, for the price of far less than a missile or a MiG fighter, way less, you can completely upset the apple cart in an American election with seed money. It's a lot cheaper to overthrow the government of a democracy who's your enemy that way than it is through missiles and fighter jets. You're undermining them from within.
So this is an extension of the Cold War, effectively. It's almost as if the Cold War never ended. And the other thing I would say... And
well, it
maybe,
was revived by Putin. Yeah.
Indeed. The other thing I would say is that Americans who are subscribing to this kind of whole Trump movement are extremely gullible. They are, they are open to suggestion. They don't check the facts. They don't understand about sources and where this information is coming from. And Trump's like that himself. I mean, we've seen that from his retweets just in the past week. And that is a problem because, if you're going to do that to a nation where everybody is highly educated and, really kind of is interested in this stuff, that would be different. But here we have such a kind of mixed group of people who are open to undue influence and mind control.
There are two people who could do more to stop this than anyone to eradicate this Russian influence. One is Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump could come out and say, this is nonsense. This is coming from Russia. Don't pay it. Of course, he's not going to do that because he's owned by them too. But, if he did come out and say something like that, repudiate some of this stuff, I think, a lot of it would go away because a lot of their followers are the consumers of it. And Elon Musk, would be another one. If Elon Musk said, I'm not going to allow this on my platform, I'm going to shut this stuff down, then I think that would go a long way as well. But the opposite is true. He promotes this stuff because he's all in on getting Donald Trump elected. And so he's going to allow this stuff not only to thrive and to fester and spread, but he's actively promoting it.
We have to start thinking of Elon Musk as an oligarch because that's what he is. And I think that we tend to reserve the oligarch word by nature of its Russian origins to Russians. We used to have one in London who owned Chelsea Football Club and, he eventually got deported, but he bought up everything in London and he was our oligarch that we would refer to all the time. And, there's plenty of them here.
I was actually thinking about this the other day because I was thinking with his dispute with Brazil, I was thinking he is the definition of the globalist oligarch that people on the right, like Alex Jones and others, have been railing against for years. And yet he is the personification of it because what their villains are people who circumvent the laws of nations. They don't respect governments. They consider themselves above the law. And when a government does something that they disagree with, they use the power of money, wealth, influence to override that, or they shift their company in another place. They move to other places. They move around the world. These are what these globalist oligarchs do. And if you look at it, this is exactly what Musk is. When Musk doesn't like what France says or what Brazil says about what he's doing, he goes to war with these countries. He does not recognize their sovereignty or their laws. He thinks he is above them all. And he thinks that Starlink, which gives him the ability to deliver internet all over the world, whether countries want it or not, whether countries want people to be able to access certain things or not, he's found a way with Starlink to circumvent sovereignty of countries.
Because Starlink is power, right?
Yes.
And he knew that from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
And in the same way that, this Cybertruck, when he announced it, and I watched his kind of press event on television, and he said, this vehicle is for the apocalypse. He wasn't joking, Ron. No. He's all in with this stuff. And I'm very much of the opinion that his plan has always been to move into the control of government. He doesn't want to get elected in a democratic fashion. I mean, look at the way he's infiltrated NASA. This is very serious.
Yep.
NASA now relies on SpaceX rockets. They're relying on one to rescue 2 astronauts that are stuck up there at the moment on the ISS. I mean, this is the power, the money, the greed of an oligarch, but also that of a James Bond film baddie. And that's who Elon Musk clearly has become.
I mean, I think when these things started, I think people in government thought, oh, this is a good thing. Here's this private business. He's saving us all this money. He's using his own money to do this stuff. We don't have to use tax dollars. This is great. He cares about the world. He cares about driving humanity forward. It all sounded great. But then either he turns or flips, or that's the ketamine or whatever, or as what you said, he was always like this, and he always had this as his plan.
Yeah.
And now he's gotten himself so entrenched, and he's got control of all these satellites, control of electric cars, rockets, the internet, social media. So he's got his hands in batteries. He's got his hands in so many different areas that
he'll be able to hold the country.
He's more powerful than anyone in government.
He'll be able to hold the country to ransom when he wants to, right? It's like Russian pipelines, bringing oil and gas across Europe. These things they really have huge amounts of jeopardy attached to them. Look, I met Elon Musk 30 years ago, and he owned PayPal at the time. Mm-hmm. And think about that. Think about how PayPal has just infiltrated everybody's bank account. There's a lot of data mining. There's a lot of, they are able to, and PayPal is also Venmo. The two are the same. I don't think he owns it anymore, but even so, what a place to start out. So yeah, it's very interesting. And we did predict on this show, when we first started doing this program, that he would not just come out for Donald Trump in this election. But my fear is, I don't know if you read this story as I did, but Donald Trump is considering giving him a senior role in government.
Yeah.
Managing purchasing or something?
Well, Musk responded. Musk said he's looking forward to that he can't wait. Now, I don't believe that he will actually have any formal role or actually be appointed to anything.
Yeah.
But he'll be, serving on commissions and making recommendations and, of course, having influence. So, sure. The question is, how much would Trump allow him to have? Probably a lot. I think the first order of business is Musk already tipped his hand on this week, is that he wants Trump to intervene on behalf of the U.S. government in his dispute with Brazil and France and the EU. He is looking for Donald Trump to use the power to basically, when somebody crosses him in a place like France or Brazil, to have Trump threaten them as president and say, we're gonna pull whatever, we're gonna pull our ships out of your territory, we're gonna cut off trade with you if you don't leave Elon Musk alone. That's what he wants from Donald Trump.
And Elon Musk is not a supporter of NATO either. I mean, and that is my concern, is that NATO is that's where the high stakes are with a future Donald Trump presidency. I have no doubt that Trump would, pulled us out of the Iran nuclear deal, pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accord. NATO was next on his list. He just, lost the election and it never got to happen. But it's absolutely his thing. Let's just stay on Elon Musk for a moment, though, because he started posting, I mean, this is an AI image that I'll show. For those listening on the audio podcast, this is an AI-created image of Kamala Harris wearing some kind of Russian communist uniform. And Elon Musk has posted. I mean, this wasn't even a repost. This was Elon Musk created this. Kamala vows to be a communist dictator on day one. Can you believe she wears that outfit? I mean, this is slander in the first order, isn't it?
Yeah, I follow Musk. I hate following him. He's like my least favorite follow right now. There used to be other people I hated more following, but I do it because it's my job. I need to be aware of what's happening. But Musk is just, I think the last time I checked today, right before we started the show, he was up to like 61 posts. He's posting like every 6 or 7 minutes since midnight. Just maniacally posting, just all pro-Trump, anti-Harris stuff with some Brazil and France mixed in, a few other things. But, he's gone from a year or 2 years ago to where maybe like 10% of his posts were about politics. And then he was, he'd post stuff about rockets and computers and this and that, social media. He had many different interests that he would post about, and many different accounts and different genres that he would respond to, including some literature, some artists. I mean, he had all these different interests, it seemed like, a year or two ago. But in the last year, it's like reversed. It's 90-10. It's all politics and it's all the American election. And it just doesn't stop. And so no one is trying to interfere more in the outcome of this election than Elon Musk.
And, the mental health debate doesn't really happen enough for my liking. He is seriously mentally compromised. It's very clear when you listen to him talk, but also anybody that is posting that many posts has lost their grip on reality. And, we've seen it with Donald Trump. We continue to see it with Donald Trump. He is completely out of his mind. But he finds a connection with people who are equally ill. And that's why I think that we're likely to see a whole lot more of Elon Musk in a future Trump administration than we realize.
Well, because when you think about it, how many different companies is he running? I mean, when Tesla, with Starlink, with SpaceX, he's running, I don't know, 100 different companies. And he's posting every 5 minutes on social media, round the clock, all day, all night. And this is him doing it. It's not some AI thing.
Sure. But Trump was doing the same when he was pretending to be the president. So
you wonder, when is he sleeping? When is he running these companies?
Yeah.
He's like, people sometimes when I criticize how much he posts or Trump posts, they say, well, you post a lot too. Well, number one, first of all, it's my job. It's my full-time job to run a media company. And so that's number one. And then number two, I think the most I've ever posted in a day was like 51. And that's when I'm covering like 2 Trump rallies, Biden stuff, breaking news stuff, court cases. That's when there's just a lot of crazy stuff happening. Even me, as much as I post, I probably post 25 things a day. But Musk and Trump sometimes get close to 100 or over 100. And it's not breaking news.
We should remind people that Elon Musk doesn't create these companies. He invariably buys these companies.
Right.
He bought Tesla. He bought SpaceX. He's, that's what he's in the business of. And remember, he is considered to be the richest man in the world. And, we used to talk about him like he was Iron Man. And they used to say that Iron Man, that the kind of Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man was like based on Elon Musk and everything. And I was kind of bought into that years ago. And then when I got to discover quite how racist Elon Musk was and quite how bigoted and abusive he was, and obviously his hatred for anything that he considers woke, including transgenderism, I was like, wow, and talk about misjudging somebody. And invariably people's true colors come out in the wash, don't they?
Yeah, and it sure have. And he gets worse by the day.
Yeah, well, because it's an illness, this. When somebody is unwell, whether they have narcissistic personality disorder or whatever it is, they are feeding off of humanity. Individuals.
And he's admitted that he's on the spectrum. He's said that many times.
Yeah.
And he's admitted that he takes ketamine.
Yeah.
Self-medicates to deal with issues that he has. I don't think that it's going very well.
Okay. Let's talk about a couple of the conspiracy theories that are floating around. There's a new one regarding the Amazon Alexa. I say Alexa quietly because I don't want to set off everybody's speakers in their home. This one is really kind of crazy, isn't it? Just kind of set this up. Effectively, if you ask the device about the election, it is willing to tell you about Kamala Harris and her plans for election as a presidential candidate. But when it comes to Donald Trump, Alexa's like, I'm sorry, I can't tell you anything about politics. Just tell us a little bit about
basically it. It just started with just one random guy that no one ever heard of.
Yeah.
Who filmed himself saying to Alexa, should I vote for Donald Trump for president? And basically, it gave like sort of a non-committal answer. And then, well, what about Kamala Harris? And then his Alexa apparently said some positive things about Harris, but also at the same time said, I can't take sides in political issues and I can't tell you who to vote for, et cetera, et cetera. But then they all started doing it. All these right-wing influencers started copying it and doing copycat videos where their Alexa is supposedly saying all this stuff. How much of it is legit, we don't know. And it just really blew up and really went viral that there is a conspiracy by Jeff Bezos to tamper with and rig the election by rigging Alexas. Now, this also presupposes, though, that people are actually going to ask Alexa who they should vote for, which is just moronic. I mean, who is going to go like, I really don't know who to vote for. Let me ask Alexa. Like, who's going to do that? I mean, give me a break. So it's like, once again, they create something to get mad about. It's like, what do I need to be mad about today? Oh, I can't really think of anything that can make me mad. Let me create something that will make me mad. I mean, that's a typical right-wing thing to do. And they literally just created this Alexa conspiracy as if, there's millions of people out there that are going to vote a certain way because that dot tells them to.
Let's take a look at one Trump supporter who really is taking it out on Alexa.
And I'm not a big Amazon person myself, but I'm going to film a little video for you telling you how I really feel. Stay tuned. Take 2. Amazon's Alexa dot bye-bye election interference. I felt so strongly, I had to get a big sledgehammer. Let's see if I get it. Fuck you, Amazon.
And apologies for the coarse language in that clip. I mean, like you say, they've just run out of stuff to do or to say, and in fact, let them destroy their devices, and then they can buy more, and that's good for the economy. Not great for the climate, but good for the economy.
By the way, that's Sophia Hutchins. She's like a friend of Caitlyn Jenner. I guess she's considered his agent or manager or something. Her manager, agent. Sophia is considered, and she in the past we've seen right wingers use guns to blow things up and shoot things, but she decided to go with a sledgehammer. I guess maybe she doesn't own a firearm or whatever, but yeah, I mean, it's just so preposterous and so silly what these people do for attention and what these people do to manufacture outrage. But there it is.
It's yeah. I was just thinking, if you were to ask Siri who to vote for, whether you would get a different answer, or even the Google Home. Well, I'm sure isn't
Grok Musk's AI thing.
I don't know. I'm not
No,
really.
I'm
I
sure.
try not to kind of get into that stuff too much because it's like
Me too.
you
Yeah.
know. Although saying that, to have a device, I've read a lot about elderly people who live on their own. The smart speaker has changed their life because they have someone to talk to. And if you've done any practice with ChatGPT or ChatGPT-4, as I have recently, it really is like having a friend in the room. Like you can talk about your feelings and, it's a natural human voice. We are getting to a point of no return. And I've been thinking about this stuff a lot recently. And so whilst it might be strange for us to have this conversation about asking the smart speaker who to vote for, that's going to become a thing. Not necessarily with these devices as they stand, but with this new GPT back end. Trust me, people will be making their decisions talking to their digital assistants.
Something new for the oligarchs and the Russians to take control of, right?
This is why I keep saying that democracy already fell, because we live in a space that is so easy to influence, and we just don't know.
And when we talked earlier about the founding fathers,
They
that's
would shit a
certainly
brick
not something they ever thought of, right?
Can you imagine going back and saying, now listen, things have changed a bit.
Yeah.
There's this little, they wouldn't even know what a speaker was.
Right.
There's this noise machine and you can ask it anything and they would, it's just not happening. We should probably mention at this moment about the judge that has prevented Donald Trump from using one of his favorite songs. And Alina Harber's not very happy about it. Let's take a look.
President Trump also has another love: music. A few years ago, he wanted me to hear a new song he had selected for an upcoming rally. I could hear it blaring in the background at Mar-a-Lago. He landed on a song called "Hold On, I'm Coming."
Yeah, what's the backstory behind this? We've heard, obviously, a whole bunch of artists have now started, off the back of these various rallies where this music is played, including Celine Dion with My Heart Will Go On, and the irony of that being the Titanic theme. But there's a whole bunch of artists now who are like, you are not playing my music at all.
Yeah. And this is a song that Trump used to play the YMCA, or Macho Man, actually, is what he used to dance to. And I think his advisors told him, we're getting creamed with women, the women's vote. Maybe they told him that the singer was gay. I don't know. But for some reason, he abandoned Macho Man 3 years ago and switched, as Alina just said there, to Hold On, I'm Coming, which was written by Isaac Hayes, not sung by him, sung by somebody else, but written by Isaac Hayes, who's dead. And so this is the song that he dances to Trump always has the same routine, right? Every single day, every single rally, the same suit. He goes to the fast food restaurant. He does the interview backstage. He comes out to proud to be an American. He claps. Everything is exactly the same every single rally. And at the end, after his speech, they play this song, and that's when he does his little dance and he walks off stage, right? So all the clips you see of him dancing is to this song that he personally chose. So what happened is that the family, the estate, sued him recently, just got an emergency injunction to prevent him from using this song and playing this song anymore at his rallies. So he hasn't had a rally yet since this ruling came down a couple days ago. He doesn't have one scheduled this week. The only thing he has scheduled is a Hannity town hall. But it will be interesting to see if this is yet another court order that he decides he wants to try and defy.
It's so interesting, isn't it, that he again, it comes down to power and money and thinking you can do whatever you want. And the reality is you can't do whatever you want, including, rejecting the outcome of an election if you don't like it. Let's just talk about Trump's stance on abortion for a moment, because, he's like an open book, really, isn't he? The flip-flopping is such a thing. He obviously got data to suggest that his position on abortion was not favorable for him to win. Now, he needs to win because he doesn't want to go to prison, and so he is prepared to say anything, changing his story, changing his views, changing his opinions. And obviously abortion is the, completely the hot button issue for this forthcoming election. But he's now turned around on that one too. Let's take a quick look at this clip.
You overturned Roe, and you want abortion to be a states' rights issue. In Florida, the state that you are a resident of, there's an abortion-related amendment on the ballot to overturn the 6-week ban in Florida. How are you going to vote on that?
Well, I think the 6-week is too short. It has to be more time, and so and I've told them that I want more weeks.
So you'll vote in favor of the amendment?
I am going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. Look, just so you understand.
So effectively he wants Roe, which is what he overturned.
Yeah, well, you see at his move at the end, which is he's trying to get out of answering. He's been pinned down.
Yeah.
Which is he's in the spot that I have wanted him in for 3 years,
yes,
and I've called for. I finally got a reporter who follows me on social media to ask the question that I've been wanting to ask for 3 years since Roe was overturned, which is pinning him down, which is saying it's a binary choice. You have to vote yes or no on this Florida 6-week amendment to change it back to Roe. Yes or no. How are you going to vote on this? So he says 6 weeks is not enough, was his first statement. Okay, well, then the follow-up, she asked, so are you going to vote for the Florida amendment, which would put it to 15 weeks? And he says, I'm going to vote for, and then he changes the subject. Okay, so that was sort of the unfortunate part, is that she did a great job. She pinned him down. I wish she could have stuck with that a little longer to force him, because what this did is I knew right away that this was going to set off a firestorm, not with people on the left. Democrats a lot of Democrats just yawned about what he just said. But I understood the significance of it from the base perspective.
Yeah.
Because here's what I understand about the Republican Party, okay? And this is what a lot of Democrats simply don't understand, no matter how many times I try to explain it, is that there is a percentage of evangelicals who are Republican and not MAGA. They're soft MAGA. Their number one issue is abortion, and their number one issue is religion. And they understand that Donald Trump is not a believer. They understand he doesn't read the Bible. They understand he doesn't go to church. They understand about all the women and all the affairs. And they've always had to hold their nose to vote for Trump. And again, I'm not talking about MAGA. I'm talking about this 8 to 10% sliver of non-MAGA evangelicals that say that abortion is their number one issue. And they will never, ever vote for a pro-choice person, regardless if they agree with that person on every other issue. And so I knew that his answer that he just gave, 6 weeks is not enough, was going to be a deal breaker for those voters. And Trump cannot afford to lose those voters. He can't lose any of them. So I knew the significance of this, even though many Democrats, I think, didn't realize the significance of this. They just said, oh, he's lying about being pro-choice. And I said, no, that's not where the focus should be. The focus should be on he has just alienated a key segment of the voters that he needs. And so what did he do? This did set off a firestorm. All the pro-life groups went crazy in response to what he said over a 24-hour news cycle. We're burning up the phone lines, and Trump walked it back, and he said, no, I'm gonna vote against the amendment. He sort of took it back, but I think he looked pretty terrible in doing it.
And this exposes the duality of Donald Trump, who is trying to win the election for himself to stay out of prison, versus Donald Trump, the leader of the Republican Party, that has political opinions, views about things such as abortion. Because, Trump is a populist. He's going to go wherever he needs to go in order to get the vote so he can win, to prevent him from being incarcerated. And that will not always fall in line with what his voters want.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, he doesn't care about this issue at all.
Yeah.
He could care less.
Right.
He'd be pro-abortion, against, because it doesn't affect him. Melania's not getting an abortion anytime soon, at least not with his child. So, you know, that's not something that personally affects him, so he doesn't care. Or if she needs to, she'll get one, you know, regardless. She'll whatever the law is of the state that she lives in. But she happens to live in New York apart from him. But the point is that he will say anything. He has few core beliefs. And this is definitely not one of his core beliefs. So he's just looking for the way to kind of keep the pro-life evangelical base happy, but also kind of win over some of the pro-choice women who aren't happy with Roe being overturned. So he's walking this tightrope and balancing on it. And I knew that he was walking this tightrope, and he knows it. And the only way to push him off the rope was to pin him down on the Florida question.
He's probably going to flip-flop again
Yeah.
leading up to the election. Once the Florida vote is done, then he'll probably come out and change his position again. But not having clarity is not going to work for him at the ballot box, is it?
Well, look, the bridge is already burned there. He's not going to get the pro-choice people. They're lost to him. They understand that he is the cause of this.
Oh, sure. But
Crazy.
I'm talking about the and I don't use the phrase pro-life because it doesn't mean anything. But I think the people who are vehemently anti-abortion, they always are looking for leadership. And, you know, and in looking for someone to vote for, the problem is that if Donald Trump is not on the same page as them, there isn't another candidate that is.
This is a common argument I also hear from Democrats. Correct. And I heard this a lot this week when I said what I said, that this is significant. They would say, well, they're not going to vote for Kamala Harris. That's not the point, because there's so much a voter can do to lodge their protest and displeasure that can hurt a candidate. They can do what I did in 2016 and vote. I went in, I voted all the down ballot races and voted none of the above in the presidential race. There are many anti-abortion, let's use that word. There are many of those voters who are going to do that. They're going to write in Mike Pence. They're going to write in Ron DeSantis. That's what they're going to do, or they're simply not going to vote in that race. They can stay home. They can stop sending checks in. They can cut off their monthly contributions. They can not work phone banks. They can not knock doors. There's so much that these evangelical voters are the bedrock of the Republican Party grassroots get out the vote effort. These are the worker bees. Every Republican who's run campaigns like myself knows this, that these are the people that you rely on to do the grunt work the Republicans do. And if they're dissatisfied, disaffected, and they think that their candidate is not with them on this issue, they'll sit it out. And that will hurt Trump. So you know, you don't just say, well, they're not going to vote for Harris, so it doesn't matter. That's not really understanding the way elections work.
And I actually personally think that a lot of conservatives will vote for Harris just this once. Those are the pro-democracy conservatives.
The real conservatives.
Right, who recognize the importance of the republic and keeping it in shape. And ultimately, I think that there's been enough coverage now of the threat to democracy. And I do believe that there's enough intelligent conservatives who are not MAGA, who don't subscribe to Trumpism, who will just this once. And this is the other thing, you know, and we should be making more of this. You don't have to tell people who you're going to vote for. You know, voting is a very private moment. And I've been reading a lot about these Republican wives who are feeling pressure from their husbands to vote for Donald Trump when they might not want to. And again, you know, and so I think, did we talk about this last time, was the idea that these men are trying to do mail-in ballots so that they can actually control what their wives are, how their wives are voting. I mean, there's so much evil that is happening that is not getting the coverage that people don't really know about.
Yeah.
That is preventing, again, it's all voter suppression, whether it's coming from the local authority or even coming from inside the home.
Yeah. That's the big question. Is there this undervote? Is there this this group of Republicans who are not showing up in polls. They won't say this to a pollster.
Yeah.
They won't say this to anyone publicly, even their family members, but they're going to vote for Harris. You know, I do believe that there is a segment out there. I don't think it's a huge number, but I think it's a significant number. And, you know, of course, it's just a theory. It's just a vibes thing. We don't really know for sure. But I just think a lot of this stuff is gonna have an effect. But I think that there's one other thing that could help more with that, which is if more people who don't like Trump that are Republicans, you know, the people like your Brian Kemps, your Chris Sununu's, we need more Larry Hogan's. We need more of them to actually have the courage and the integrity to stand up and say, no, I'm not voting for this man. Like actually Mike Pence did. You know, Mike Pence actually did that. But the problem is so many of these people are saying, well, I don't like Trump and I don't agree with all this stuff he's doing, but Harris is a Marxist and a communist, so I'm voting for Trump anyway. And,
well, the person
that's not helping.
The person that needs to do it is Mitch McConnell. You know, he is the kind of center of power. If he was to recognize the threat to democracy, I mean, he doesn't recognize it. He doesn't recognize himself in the mirror, unfortunately, at the moment.
If Mitch McConnell had come out and said that he was going to vote to convict Trump on the second impeachment, Trump, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Trump would have been convicted.
So much of this hinges on Mitch McConnell, and
he isn't going to do anything. We're not going to count, because all he cares about is winning the Senate. And if he does that, that's going to nuke their chances of winning the Senate.
Let's talk about J.D. Vance, who is continuing to put his foot in it. Vance does it again. This time, he posted a clip from Miss Teen US 2007, Caitlin Upton. And let me show this posting that he kind of put up for those listening on the audio podcast. He wrote, "Breaking, I've gotten a hold of the full Kamala Harris CNN interview." And it's that famous kind of meme where Caitlin Upton, who was it? She couldn't name capital cities or something, you know, some basic general knowledge test. And he actually posted that. He actually selected the photograph of her with her South Carolina, what are those things called that you wear across your chest? I think
banner.
Yeah, there's a word, sash. A sash. There you go.
That's it. Yeah.
It's a word I'm not. Don't use that often. Maybe to describe a window. But this is a whole thing, right? This is a whole thing. And J.D. Vance, there's been a huge backlash off the back of this. I just want to play a quick clip from CNN where he asks about it, and if indeed he feels that he wanted to apologize for it. This is pretty serious. Let's take a look.
Night after CNN released a small clip of the Harris interview, you on Twitter posted a clip from a Miss Teen USA beauty pageant from 2007, Caitlin Upton, and you wrote, "I have gotten a hold of the full Kamala Harris CNN interview." Now, this thing that surfaced around the internet for a few years, she struggled answering a question back in this beauty pageant. I'm not sure you're aware, in 2015, Caitlin Upton did an interview in New York Magazine about all the social media attention this clip got, and she said, "I definitely went through a period where I was very, very depressed, but I never let anybody see that stuff except for people I could trust. I had some very dark moments where I thought about committing suicide." So when you posted this last night, were you aware that the woman you were posting a picture of had contemplated committing suicide for the attention it had received?
No, certainly not, John, and my heart goes out to her, and I hope that she's doing well. Look, I've said a lot of things on camera. I've said a lot of stupid things on camera. Sometimes when you're in the public eye, you make mistakes, and again, I think the best way to deal with it is to laugh at ourselves, laugh at this stuff, and try to have some fun in politics. I posted a meme from 20 years ago, and I think the fact that we're talking about that instead of the fact that American families can't afford groceries or health care, young families can't afford to buy a home to raise their families in, those are the real crises that we should focus on. And there's nothing that says that we can't tell some jokes along the way while we deal with the very serious business of bringing back our public policy. Politics has gotten way too lame, John, way too boring. You can have some fun while making a good argument to the American people about how you're going to improve their lives.
Okay, I just want to be clear, though. You said you did know. Would you like to apologize to Caitlin Upton for posting that last night, given what you've now learned?
John, I'm not going to apologize for posting a joke, but I wish the best for Caitlyn. I hope that she's doing well. And again, what I'd say is one bad moment shouldn't define anybody, and the best way to deal with this stuff is to laugh at ourselves.
Last night, Vice President Harris.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad indictment of where we're at, that's the vice presidential candidate for the Republican Party.
Yeah, I mean, him and Trump, they're always there, and their spokespeople. They're always fallback is always, it was just a joke. I was just kidding, where it was a big joke, right?
Sarcastic. They love that one.
And I appreciate where he went with the question there to Vance about her suicide issues, but there's more to this than that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a misogynist, sexist attack on Kamala Harris, which is how I captioned the first tweet about this. And what he did is he was talking about her interview that she gave to CNN, and he took this 20-year-old, this clip of this beauty pageant contestant who gave just a complete inane answer to a question, and said this was Kamala Harris in this interview. This is what she sounded like. So he's saying again, this all plays in the theme that she slept her way to the top. She used her looks, that she used sex appeal, all of this kind of stuff to get ahead. And now you're comparing her to a beauty pageant contestant who maybe isn't very worldly or very smart. Not only that, he did it with someone who is a Trump supporter, who's likely a Trump Vance voter, who had all these issues over this, dredging this back up. So it goes to show you truly what an insensitive ass he is. And it also goes to show you that, when you take basically someone who's a right-wing social media influencer type guy like Vance, and you make him a senator, and then you make him an actual vice presidential candidate, what plays in the right-wing ecosystem on social media and gets you laughs and clicks isn't necessarily what gets you votes when you're running for president.
Yeah. I mean, I am just thinking about the social groups that he is alienating, right? We know that Donald Trump has done his fair share of alienating social groups. J.D. Vance brings a whole new section to this. And just by nature of the way he is, his misogyny, he clearly is scared of women or something, and they're both pretty terrified of Kamala Harris. And
I mean, look at this campaign.
Rightly.
Donald Trump, J.D. Vance. Now let's take a look at the people running the campaign. Corey Lewandowski, Jason Miller, Stephen Miller. We could go right down the line. Steve Chung, Chris Lasavita, one after. These are the people that are supposed to appeal to women voters. This cast of characters, it's almost like they've written them off and they just said, we don't care. We'll take the handful of, married evangelical women and we'll put them together we'll do really well with men. And we've actually heard this from Charlie Kirk and others that said, look, Trump's not going to win women. We just gotta turn out young men. Young white men don't vote. If we just get them to vote in big numbers, we don't need women. They're actually saying this now.
But here's the thing. Women represent 52% of the vote in this country. And that is why my prediction is that it will be a landslide win for the Democrats. I don't believe the polling is picking up on this because, as we've said, people are not going to be communicating their true feelings. If a pollster phones and says, who are you going to be voting for? And her husband is listening, she'll be like, Donald Trump. But I think it'll be a different story at the ballot box. And I really do believe that. But everybody needs to get out and vote. And we should remind people of that. Like, this is critical. There has never been a more critical election. Let's talk about RFK Jr., because he's been struggling again, hasn't he? I mean, I'm starting to feel a little bit sorry for him. This is a Michigan court now, has just denied his request to have his name removed from the ballot since he previously accepted the nomination of the Natural Law Party. Tell us a little bit about this, Ron.
So, I mean, here's the problem. The problem is he waited too long to back out. And he waited until after deadlines in a lot of states. So now he's scrambling trying to get his name taken off ballots after it's already too late. And you take the case in point of Michigan here. Michigan, he accepted the nomination of the Natural Law Party. This was when he first decided he was going to run as independent. Natural Law Party is on the ballot. So when you're a third party, we've talked about this before, to keep your ballot position, you have to get a certain number of votes and, jump through a certain number of hoops. But once you've done that and you've established yourselves as a legitimate third party, you're kind of automatically on the ballot every election. So you don't have to jump through all the same hoops. So he accepted the Natural Law Party's nomination. He signed documents that said that he would not back out, that once you accept, this is their bylaws, once you accept, that's it. And the reason for that is because they can't get another candidate. It's too late. So if he says to them now, well, I don't want to be your candidate anymore, I've changed my mind, take me off, it's too late. They can't nominate somebody else. So they would have no candidate, which means their party would be gone. I mean, they basically have to start all over again and jump through all the hoops to get back on the ballot in 4 more years when they don't want to do that. So the Natural Law Party said, no, you signed this pledge, you're our nominee, you're staying on the ballot. And the Secretary of State agreed. And now a judge has agreed. But of course, they're all screaming and yelling that this is election interference and all of that this isn't fair. But it's just a matter of them just being incompetent.
Donald Trump's stock is continuing to tank, isn't it? And we talked a little bit just off the back of the election interference argument. I mean, I still cannot understand how it's possible that he can run a publicly trading company where any foreign national could curry influence by buying stock. This really is a very lawless country. You do recognize that there. I always say that the only way anybody gets any justice in America is if they can afford a really good lawyer. But in terms of the checks and balances and the systems in place to keep America safe, the fact that Trump was able to be the president without even getting close to a security clearance is another example of that. But here we have him with his stock price. Devin Nunes is the CEO of DJT Media, or whatever it's called. They're really struggling, aren't they? Let's have a quick look.
We're creating a home for people that don't have a home, that have traditional television content, kind of made for TV content. So say you can't get your documentary on Netflix or on Amazon Prime. Sound familiar? I mean, it happens all the time. There's so many of these documentaries and films that don't have a home. So we're focusing on news and information on channels that don't have homes, religious channels that may have a home but have to pay an exorbitant amount to the legacy systems in order to be there. Giving a home for people that have been banned. I mean, if you think of One America News, they're not on any of the legacy systems.
Right.
Newsmax is struggles to stay on all of the legacy systems. I think Real America's Voice is on one. I think they're maybe on Dish Network. So we're really focused on creating a home for, like I said, news, information, religious channels, and family-friendly content.
Yeah. This isn't going to work out for them, is it?
No, this is all nonsense. Everything you just said there is nonsense. And so here's what we know. We know that Trump can dump his stock on September 20th. So we are 2 weeks out. We are 16 days out from him dumping the stock.
Right.
And there
are they're trying to raise the stock price by talking about it.
It's dropping. People, the investors know this. Okay, they're nervous, and it's dropping. And they're just trying to do whatever they can, say or do, to keep this stock price elevated enough so that Trump can cash out in 16 days and make money off of this. Now, Nunes was not under any such restrictions. And what we found out is that Nunes a few weeks ago dumped $600,000 worth of his own stock shares in this company. So the CEO is dumping stock. The other officers and people associated with the company are busy dumping stock. And it's continuing to spiral down. And Donald Trump has to be sitting there going, Oh my God. Oh my God. So what Nunes is doing is he's trying to get out there and say, oh, don't worry. We're going to turn this company around. And how are we going to do it? We're going to start streaming all these channels and shows that have been banned by every other platform for a variety of reasons. And we're going to platform them. And then True Social is going to take off, which is ridiculous. Like, nobody believes that is actually going to happen. And not only that, he's been talking about this for months. This is all about keeping the stock price elevated so that Donald Trump can fleece his cultists in a couple of weeks.
Didn't Elon Musk get into trouble for doing a similar thing a few years ago? Didn't he post that, I'm thinking of taking the company back into private ownership, and then he did that purposely to push the stock price, and then changed his mind. I mean, he did actually get a rap on the knuckles for that.
Yeah, he had to pay a massive fine for that. Yeah, you can't manipulate the stock, but Trump is very careful never to comment on the stock.
Yeah,
and Nunes is kind of doing what he's allowed to do as CEO. But I think Nunes Look, here's the bottom line: is it if Trump loses this election, I think there's going to be prosecutions of this company at some point for insider trading and stock manipulation and all of that. But again, this is something else that if Trump wins the election will go away. Right?
If Trump wins the election, many of us are going to be deported.
Yeah.
So
I think we have bigger things to worry about than this. But what will be interesting, though, is if he does do this, if he does cash out in 16 days in a big way, and most of the people who he's going to be taking advantage of are his own followers and fans who are going to lose their investment, a lot of which is significant for them. What will be the reaction to that? And we've talked about this before. Is he actually going to do it? Is he actually going to cash out, or is he going to be afraid to do that before the election and maybe want to wait until after the election? I don't know. What's your theory? Your theory is he's going to cash out, right?
I think that he will cash out because he doesn't want to be seen to be backing a losing horse. I also think that he has huge debts to pay, not least these court fines, like $500 million worth at least. He still owes money to E. Jean Carroll and, various things. I think that he's going to do the selfish thing because, it's like with the abortion subject. He doesn't care about these people.
Yeah, but he cares about winning the election. And so I agree with you. I think that he thinks these people are going to stick with me. Even if they lose their 401ks here in the stock, they'll still stay with me. They're cultists, they believe, and I'll persuade them that I'm going to turn it around.
He'll make something up. He'll basically
once he
say,
starts dumping that stock, it is really going to go through the floor.
I know.
Once the owner starts selling off. So it's been fun to watch. It's been fun to watch every day as it continues to spiral down. I think it's down to like $18 a share now from a high of 79 6 months ago. And the frustrating part for me, and I just tweeted about this, is the fact that neither Donald Trump, JD Vance, none of their campaign spokespeople or surrogates, no one has ever been asked about this in an interview. We just saw JD Vance went on CNN. Why didn't they say to him, Donald Trump says that the stock market is going to crash if Kamala Harris wins this election, and he keeps talking about the stock market being up because of him. Why is his own stock lost 75% of its value in 6 months? How is it? No one's ever been asked that question, not one time. Somebody needs to ask it.
There are so many questions that need to be asked of Donald Trump and his surrogates that never get asked. And I find it endlessly frustrating to watch. And even that CNN clip with Vance, again, it's just so frustrating. Like, you've got the guy there. There's so much to do with him. The pageant story is, it's not that big a story. There's so much more.
Aren't you going to apologize to her?
Yeah.
We spent 2 minutes trying to get Vance to apologize to a Trump supporter, beauty pageant contestant. Come on, give me a break.
didn't Vance, I'm sure I saw a clip of Vance pretending that his earpiece had failed when he was asked some probing questions. Did you see that one the other day?
Yeah,
And he's like,
I
I
did,
can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he was doing, right?
Probably. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did see the clip. Of course, there's no way to know for sure.
Yeah.
you know,
It
but
looked
he's
to
not
me,
a very good actor.
To
Yeah.
me, and I have some experience of the earpiece.
Yeah.
he was making that up. He didn't want to answer a question, so he pretended that he couldn't hear. I mean, that's a cheap, dirty trick. Let's talk about Joe Rogan for a second, because Donald Trump has denied having tensions with Rogan. This is despite negatively posting about him in the past. Rogan recently had this thing where he was going to support RFK, and then RFK then suspends but doesn't end his campaign and now endorses Trump. So that leaves Rogan in a bit of a situation. What's the backstory here before I show the clip?
This is the familiar Trump pattern. We saw it with DeSantis, with Brian Kemp, with Doug Ducey, with you name it. We can go on and on and on, where he will attack. First, he will sweet talk and persuade and try and cajole, and I love you and you love me and we're all cool and we all love each other, so you need to do what I want. When that doesn't work, then he starts attacking. And then he pulls back and starts praising again. I mean, it's this constant like carrot and stick approach that he uses to try and wear somebody down and get them to go along with what he wants them to do. And that's what he's doing here again.
Let me play the clip and you'll get a sense of this.
Let me ask you about my good friend Joe Rogan. So you had a bit of tension with him. So when he said nice things about RFK Jr., I think you've said some not so nice things about Joe, and I think that was a bit unfair. And as a fan of Joe, I would love to see you do his podcast, because he is legit the greatest conversationalist in the world. So what's the story behind the tension?
I don't think there was any tension. And I've always liked him, but I don't know him. I mean, I only see him when I walk into the arena with Dana and I shake his hand. I see him there, and I think he's good at what he does, but I don't know about doing his podcast. I mean, I guess I'd do it, but I haven't been asked, and I'm not asking them, I'm not asking anybody.
It sounds like a challenging negotiation situation.
No, it's not. It's not really a negotiation. And he's sort of a liberal guy, I guess, from what I understand. But he likes Kennedy. This was before I found this out, before Kennedy came in with us. He's going to be great. Bobby's going to be great.
What's going on with the lethargy there?
I mean, he was definitely. I said Ronnie Jackson needs to lower his Xanax prescription, but
or give him a fresh one.
Lex Fridman, the interviewer there, is dead on the money. He knows exactly what's going on here, and he's trying to get Trump to go, because here's really what's happening. Joe Rogan has a huge audience, and the audience is largely, it's a huge percentage of it is not MAGA. They're not hardcore Trump supporters.
Yeah.
They're the kinds of voters, almost all male. They're the kinds of voters that Trump wants to tap into, right? And a lot of them don't traditionally vote, this and that. So Trump has been wanting to get on Rogan's podcast for a long time. There's been many reports about this. Many influencers, many people in Trump's orbit have pushed Joe Rogan to put Trump on. And we know Trump wants to go on. Trump will go on any podcast that has an audience. We've seen this in the past. He will go on. He's been on some very fringy, weird, nut job podcasts. Just because they have 100,000 views, he'll do it, right? So the idea that he wouldn't do the biggest podcaster with the biggest audience is preposterous.
So he's pleading ignorance here. He knows the game.
Right. He's dying to do Rogan.
Yeah.
But Rogan won't let him, because Rogan has said, I don't want to do anything to help Donald Trump. He endorsed RFK. RFK dropped out, and it appears Rogan just wants to stay out of this race now. He just doesn't want to get involved. And so we know that Trump was sweet talking him, cajoling him. And I think Trump has finally realized, like, it's just not going to happen. He's finally not going to go on. And so, now he's talking his
Yeah.
talking shit. But he wasn't saying anything like that a few months ago when he thought there was still a chance he could get invited on.
Well, as the narcissist, Trump hates rejection.
That's it.
So what you're seeing there, that lethargy, is Trump dealing with the rejection of Joe Rogan and struggling to process it.
But he won't admit it. He sits there and goes, "Well, I don't really want to go on his show." We know that's ridiculous. Of course he does.
Trump has an interesting new person endorsing him. This is the Mark Robinson. Let's talk about this guy. This is kind of interesting, isn't it? This is the Republican candidate for governor in North Carolina, who reportedly watched porn in private booths up to 5 days a week in the 1990s, strenuously denies that, as well as the Holocaust, it seems. This is another Trump endorsement, right?
This is just example number 540, where, there's a state or a district or an area that's there for the taking for Republicans. That Republicans have every advantage numerically, mathematically, vibes wise, poll wise, all that to win a seat.
Yeah.
We saw it in 2020 and Trump goes out and endorses and chooses the worst possible people to run for these seats. Herschel Walker and he could have picked 10 people that could have won that seat. He picked the worst possible person. Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano for governor of Pennsylvania, Kerry Lake in Arizona. We can go on and on and on.
He picks the suck-ups. The people that are prepared to brown-nose him are the ones that he will endorse.
And so North Carolina it's a swing-ish state, but it's lean Republican. It's gone Republican pretty consistently. Trump won it twice, although it's winnable for Democrats, but it's still a tough road to hoe. So you would think like the Republicans should have a serious leg up in winning the North Carolina governor race, of course, but not if Trump puts his thumb on the scale and nominate and puts forth someone like this crazy Mark Robinson, who's just toxic, who has so much in his dirt, in his background, including this. It's just been one thing after another. So Trump found literally like the one guy who's most likely to lose the North Carolina governor race and promoted him.
Well, if the guy was going to porn peep shows in the 90s, then he's got a lot in common with Donald Trump. So maybe that's where he met him.
Yeah, he was like Pee Wee Herman,
Right.
That's what he did back then. But this guy has more skeleton in his closet than any candidate out there. And by the way, Kerry Lake is getting destroyed in Arizona in the polls. She's like double digits down. So, it's just Trump just continues to. This is what drives Mitch McConnell, people like Mitch McConnell, crazy, is that Trump continues to push forward these weirdo candidates that end up losing to Democrats. And Ohio, by the way, Sherrod, Ohio is big time Republican state now. And, they put forth Bernie Moreno, Trump did, who is, again, not a good candidate. And so Democrats are likely going to hang on to the Ohio Senate seat, even though Ohio has gone solidly Republican several elections in a row.
This is how Donald Trump is systematically destroying the traditional Republican Party, because his ego, his personality disorder is such that he will endorse the people that will say good things about him, say nice things about him. It's all quid pro quo. And in the process, he will continue to lose these districts for the Republicans. And
this is what Lindsey Graham predicted in 2016.
Yeah.
When he said that tweet, if we nominate Trump, we're going to get destroyed. This is what he was talking about.
Yeah. Can I add that the Pee Wee Herman cinema story was entrapment by the police? Very different story.
It took place in my town, by the way.
Very different story.
In Sarasota, Florida, where I'm from. So, yes, I'm very familiar with the situation.
It was entrapment.
Paul, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it probably, was a little shady. He was a nice guy.
Yeah. Okay. This show's not the Pee Wee Herman show. And
when I met him, he was a nice guy.
Yes,
I'll say that.
The late great Paul Rubens. Okay, let's find. I got a couple more things. We have to go in a second, but I want to talk about Lauren Boebert just for a moment, because there's this kind of secret recording of her taking credit for this kind of local infrastructure project when in fact she voted against the federal infrastructure bill. Just set this up for us before I play this secret recording.
Yeah. So, well, this is not a secret. This was the debate. It looked secret because it was so bad. It was recorded on, I think, somebody's cell phone, maybe at the debate. They had a
so
debate.
This isn't covert. You're telling me this is not a covert recording.
It's just
this
the
is
only
as
one
good
I
as they
could
could
find.
manage.
Because I knew that she had a debate, and so I said, to somebody who helps me, I said, we got to find a clip of that. I can't find any local television station that broadcasted. So we actually got that one, which is pretty poor quality. So it looks like some kind of clandestine thing, but it's not.
It certainly does, yeah. Okay,
I think it's from somebody's phone.
All right. Well, you have to listen very carefully because the audio is not great either.
It's bad, but what I can say is this: it's she voted against every spending bill, and she was up there bragging about all these projects from the infrastructure bill that were going on in her district in Colorado, and she was taking credit for him, and her Democratic opponent called her out on it and said, wait a minute, you voted against all that stuff. So what you're going to see in this clip is Lauren Boebert trying to explain that even though she voted against it, she really should get credit for it anyway. This is her reasoning.
Let's take a look.
Structure. Now, have I fought for and advocated for spending here and there? Absolutely. And local stakeholders will argue that the funding would not arrive had I not put in the work to ensure that it was a part of the legislation. Now, it's not up to me how that final bill comes up for passage. I will not put my yes vote to an omnibus bill or something that is not single subject. Well, it was up to you.
It looks like it was filmed by a spy with a pinhole camera in the lapel.
Well, I can tell you that the problem is because the person was way in the back of this event, and so I had to zoom it in, and you lose all the all the focus. But her explanation, of course, is like, look, I wanted these individual projects, but I didn't like all the other stuff in the bill, so I voted against it, which is what every Republican says. Every Republican wants to be able to say, I voted against Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi's bill, but then take credit for the things in the bill that help their district. It's the game that they all play.
It's such a shame, isn't it? Because again, this is, people voting against their own best interests, and this concept of bipartisanship is just, it's such an ancient thing. And I was thinking this about, MAGA Republicans who are just like consistently voting for Republicans, and they are still poor. It's like that. Maybe you want to try something else. Maybe you would think that after years of voting for the same team where you have not benefited, and you're still complaining about the state of your life and the situation you find yourself in, why don't you try voting for somebody who actually wants to help you out?
Well, that's because the woke Marxist Democrats are going to come take your gas stove and let a migrant take your daughter and and take your job and all of that. They're take your guns. They use fear. Yeah, and it works.
It's very sad. Fortunately, we have a new single from Lara Trump to make everything good in the world. Let's take a look. She actually posted a version that I saw without auto-tune. And so I think that was the auto-tune version, because the other version that I saw that she posted did not sound like that.
Yeah. So when she first put out her first single, she did the Tom Petty song, I Won't Back Down.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people thought, oh, this is a goof. This is a joke. Like, she's not really serious about this. This is just like a karaoke thing. But I knew from listening to her podcast, because I listen to her podcast every week, that she's very serious about this.
Oh, yes.
She thinks she's actually like a serious musical talent and that this could be a career for her. And so what did she do? Well, she pulled out all the stops this time. They had a songwriter write this song for her. They had musicians. They did it in a studio in New York. She flew up there to record this. That she is very serious that she believes she is going to be a successful recording artist. And so, you know, the funny part about it is she's currently in the middle of a presidential election and is the chair of the Republican Party. And this is what she's busy doing. So that's what made it, you know, there's two parts to this. It's number one, she actually thinks she has talent and is going to make a career out of this, which is hilarious. And then number two, we're 60 days out from a huge election and she is in charge of the Republican Party and she's making music videos.
Proof that you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. Ron, we have to finish, but what a great place to end. Always end on a song, they say. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's an old showbiz trope. If you want to download the audio podcast, you can do that wherever you get yours. It'll drop later on tonight. If you would like to watch again, then you can rewind as soon as we've finished, and please share and comment down below. And we'll come back next Wednesday and do it all over again. Ron, you happy to do that? Ready for another chance?
I don't know. We'll see if any news happens. We'll see.
There's a small chance of that. All right. Have a great week. Take care.
All right.